What's going on? Mighty Fine back for February 13th through the 18th. We're going to dive into the same list that we did last week, DXY, AU, EU, GU, GJ, EJ, and I've also prepared gold for the week. Just doing the daily and the H4 timeframes as per usual, giving you guys a high time frame perspective on highly probable behavior for these pairs and charts. Before we get into it, give me a thumbs up so the spreads, other people can get to see it. Subscribe if you don't already so you can get updates on tutorials and analysis that I drop weekly. So this upcoming week, we have a lot of news coming out of the US. Federal Reserve, FOMC, and a lot of these things are going to be watched very closely. Be aware when these events are happening because while it's hard to speculate on their impact in the market, they are potentially high impact events, news releases, and data. So check your economic calendar and make sure that you're aware as we move into this week because it could certainly spur lots of volatility. So with that being said, let's dive in. First, we're going to start with the US dollar or the Dow Jones FXCM dollar index, as you can see in the top left up here. I have some notes prepared for you for each of these pairs this week. It goes over my weekly, daily, and H4 perspective. And then if there's any high time frame structure levels that I see in play, I will note that. I don't really cater to structure that much. I care more so about price action flow. As you can see, there won't be structure on a few of these pairs. So what are we seeing? We can see that price action has been trending to the upside here on the daily chart. We have a weekly bullish leg. That's this big push to the upside. Price then came back down and retraced against that weekly bullish leg and started to consolidate. As we came into Thursday and Friday, we can see that buyers stepped in a big way and started to break out of that consolidation range. When we go down to the H4 to look at those details, we can see that these levels of supply were broken. Buyers stepped in, grabbed some orders at a familiar previous price point, and now we're potentially transitioning to the upside. So what I want to watch as the week opens is this H4 supply. If we see something like price pushing up above this, and starting a new trend or a new flow to the upside, we want to see how it behaves up into this known higher time frame supply, the high of the trend. So if we break above the blue box over here, it's likely that we are going to see a further push to the upside. However, if we break below this level that gave us the break of the range, we're probably going to come back in and retest that daily and weekly demand that I have marked out for you down here. So the nice thing is we have an objective piece of data that we can gauge what is happening with. If we break above H4 supply, she's going up. If it goes below this red box, our daily demand, it's likely to retest the green box. I've indicated my directional biases as usual at each of these levels with the red and green arrows. So if we see the dollar start to push up and strong, that's going to help us with what direction we want to trade dollar-backed pairs as well, most likely for the week. Vice versa, if it starts to go down, we know what direction the other ones are likely to go as well. On to the next pair, AUDUSD, sort of my favorite. Let's go back up to the daily chart here. You can see my notes are up top here for you as well. On the weekly chart, this is our bearish flow leg, and we are in retracement against that. You can see that price came up into a level of supply here relative to that gray box and now has started to reject for the past 2 days, the last 2 days of last week. We want to see how this week opens up because our high time frames aren't really in agreement. Our daily chart is flowing upwards, but we're now seeing this rejection, big sell orders coming in here. I'm leaning bearish on this pair overall. I just want to see if it can break below this level of demand. If it can't break below this level of demand, I think it's likely that we see a retest higher up relative to this and see if sellers step in here again, get their sell orders in, and then push into new lows. That would be sort of my ideal play for the week. However, if we just saw that push to the downside, we would want to see a retest relative to that new low and then an expansion into this level where we have a break or bounce scenario, but I would have a bearish bias overall into this high time frame trend low or the low that was created by that weekly leg to the downside. So leaning bearish on this one, again, you know, obviously it's kind of based on the data that the week opens up with. And a lot of this is going to be influenced by that FOMC and Fed news that comes out, the speculation around that. So keep that in mind. I think these are the key levels though. If we break above the daily supply, it's likely that it's going to go up. I would not take that trade. Instead, I would wait to see what happens here at that big high time frame supply zone where we have a break or bounce scenario. On to the next. Pound USD. This one's pretty ugly. I'm going to be avoiding this as the week opens up, at least, if not the whole week. As you can see, we're in this big high time frame consolidation range, right? On the daily chart, we are pushing upwards. We had a break of flow right here relative to this, bearish leg to the downside, but we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 days of pretty much just sideways movement, no distinct trend. When I see this kind of thing, intra-week consolidation, I don't really want to touch it. When we go up into a higher time frame, we can see that we were previously trending down, and this could certainly be a retracement relative to that bearish leg. So if we were to tap back into this level of supply, then see a transition, I may look for a short higher up here. But right now, there's nothing for me to do. If instead we were to see a push to the downside like this, I could look for a retest relative to that bearish behavior and then a push on down further into these trend lows or that green box that we have down there. I wouldn't be looking for the long from the green area just because we are trending down overall. GBPJPY, another one that is a little messy. We're in a big high time frame range. And as we can see, let me just move that text. As you can see here, right, we've just been sitting in this big consolidation phase. We're now seeing sellers step in again. Slightly bullish week, but sellers certainly showed that they were up there. On Friday, we see this big bearish attempt here, and we have a intraday break of flow. We broke this immediate daily demand. We also broke this H4 demand right here in a pretty big way. So here's what I'm interested in. I've indicated it with these blue arrows for you here. If we see a break to the upside above the highs of this range, it's definitely looking bullish. I would need to see a break up higher and then a retest relative to that bullish push where I could look for a continuation into the gray box or the 161 handle upside. If instead we see this H4 break of flow honored, if price can stay below this H4 supply right here, then I would look for a potential retest and transition to make new lows and sell into the weekly demand level. So again, we just need some more data. It's a little bit cleaner than GU, but not by much. So I'm going to give this thing plenty of time to set up and give me the data that I need to make a good decision. EURUSD, let's just go over the notes here. Overall, we see that we're on this big bearish flow here on the high time frames from this weekly lower high that we've got up here. However, price recently gave us that huge bullish week that we talked about last week. I said that this was most likely going to be some sort of overshoot. Price tested slightly higher again. Sellers stepped in and sold real hard into Friday. So interesting. It's mixed as well, in my opinion. We have daily and weekly breaks of flow here from that bullish push. And I could see two things happening. One, price comes back down and we see new buy orders to extend into new highs past this red zone. Or two, we see a retest relative to the current bearish flow on our intraday chart, our H4 chart, maybe somewhere here, maybe somewhere in that red box to continue down into this immediate sort of intra-week demand level at 1.127677. We have a big breaker bounce scenario here. I would say most likely if all the dollar pairs are moving down, this thing should fade down as well. Let me take that off, sorry. So, I mean, I would just trade the flow at this point. You know, if you saw a retest here and a transition, then a push into these new lows, you could take that short there. If you get above the blue box, you would want to just wait and watch this upper area here. Try and find a target that you could refine in that area and wait for a breaker bounce scenario in your red box. I'm not a huge Euro USD trader. It's not my favorite pair, but the idea does make sense. So, you know, play cautiously. I would lean bearish on this one, but again, we need more data. And this week, we're going to get a lot of data and speculation. So on to the next, we have EJ. And then last but not least, we'll move on to gold. EJ, I actually like quite a bit. There's a few major crosses that I'll be watching this week that I don't usually watch, EJ and GBPUSD as well, if you want to look into that. Here's what I'm seeing here. Let's go up to the highest time frame. So we can see that this was a big, strong level of supply that gave us that last push to the downside. Prices now retraced 100% and last week finished out quite bearish, a big rejection from that level. As we go into the daily chart, we can see that most of that happened on Friday, where we got a daily break of flow from this big bearish candle. What I would want to see right now would be a retest relative to that daily break of flow and a short opportunity to come back into, say, the 129 or 128 area near this weekly demand, daily demand box that I have here. This gray box represents your daily flow. It is currently bullish, but it's a retracement relative to the overall weekly bearish leg. So do keep that in mind. I would prefer a short here, a retest relative to this leg right here, our H4 bearish flow leg, a retracement relative to this, and then, a retest and transition. I think that we could sensibly sell this back into, like I said, 129, 128 regions. So I will be looking for something like this, a pullback back into one of these areas here, a transition, and then a push into new lows here. Last but not least, let's go look at gold. Thing went dumb bullish on Friday, right? Dumb bullish on Friday. And I think this is the result of one of the Fed members coming out and saying that they speculated there wouldn't be a rate hike for March. Obviously, it's just speculation. I want to see how this opens up for the week, but I am leaning bullish on this overall, just based on how Friday behaved. This thing has been moving bullish for a couple of weeks now. I've been calling bullish. It's been accurate. It's been right. We're seeing more and more volume coming up to test this major high time frame supply region up here. Right, big high time frame supply region. We know sellers are present. We know sellers are there. So we have a major break or bounce situation as we come into that, but we're not there quite yet. So if we saw a retest opportunity relative to this big bullish leg that we saw at the end of the week, we could look for a new long relative to that push. Anything below that, I'm not really looking for shorts. I just want to see what happens. This could be a sweet setup, but if it breaks below this, it starts to become a little bit more murky. So I think under my blue box, under my daily and H4 demand that I have marked out here, I wouldn't be looking for any trades. Overall, I'm very bullish on this, but only above this blue zone. If it starts to get below that, it's a little bit too indecisive for me, and I'm just going to sit on the sidelines and watch. And that wraps it up for the week, guys. Simple, powerful, high time frame analysis. If you want to learn more about what I do and how I do it, go check out my website, Mighty Fine FX. The link is under this video. Follow me on Instagram at Mighty Fine. I'll be dropping a couple of trade breakdowns here and there. I sprinkle them onto my website as well, where you can see the full size thing. And thank you for tuning in. Like and subscribe. Until next week, have fun and trade safe.